Pastor Ed here with Daily Devotions for Saturday, September the 16th, 2023. We start talking about personality types yesterday in the work of Carl Jung. Jung and those who further developed his theories identified 8 preferences, and each one is commonly referred to by a letter. And these 8 preferences then mix and match for 16 distinct personality types that can be identified by a 4-letter code. And every one of the 16 personality types has its own strengths and contributions to make. Again, the Myers-Briggs inventory, if you'd be interested in reading more about it, you can look it up and find a lot of information online, even can kind of test yourself. We see each of these 8 preferences is paired off with a corresponding preference. For example, extroversion versus or introversion, sensing or intuition, thinking or feeling, and then finally judging or perceiving. And so, for example, the preference for either extroversion or introversion has to do with how we are energized, either from the external world, E, or from the internal world, I. Now, normally we think of extroversion only in terms of being outgoing or sociable, and introversion as being quiet and shy. And while these attributes definitely factor into the equation, the real difference, again, is how we energize, or maybe a better way of putting it is re-energize ourselves. You see, those with a preference for extroversion enjoy action and interaction, activity. They are energized by the world around them, especially other people. Extroverts tend to function best in environments where they can work as part of a group or team. In contrast, introverts are energized by the inner world of thoughts and ideas. They tend to prefer settings where they can work alone or one-on-one. And when they want to recharge their batteries, extroverts simply seek out other people and activities. Introverts, however, tend to seek out quiet time alone. For example, Dr. Phil McGraw, the famous TV psychologist, is an obvious extrovert. You can just see that he really enjoys being with and interacting with people. That's probably what drew him to psychology, I'm sure, and then into television and even greater, larger audience with which to interact. On the other hand, the late Princess Diana was a classic introvert. She was also very visible, always in the public eye, and while she did not mind public appearances, particularly if they further the charitable causes that she supported, she also tried to maintain a private life, which was often very difficult for her. And sadly, the night she died, she was apparently trying to speed away from the ever-present paparazzi who never seemed to give her a moment alone. Well, the next pairing is sensing or intuition. This preference deals with how we gather information, either through our 5 senses, S, or through hunches, analogies, and connections, N. The N is used here to represent intuition, since the I was already used for introversion. Facts, sounds, sights, textures, and details are what the sensing types naturally pick up on. They're generally very good at identifying what is, and they like settings where they work with actual data that clearly represents factual reality. Those with a preference for intuition, however, pay much more attention to what could be. It's almost as though they rely on their 6th sense more than the other 5. Intuitives like places where the emphasis is on new developments and finding possibilities. Well, John F. Kennedy, for instance, was a sensing type. He exhibited practical common sense and a clear understanding of the real world, especially political realities. And his political career represented a methodical progression from privileged son to war hero to congressman and finally to president of the United States. In contrast, Albert Einstein was an intuitive. He began working as an examiner in the Swiss Patent Office in Bern, which gave him the free time for scientific thought and investigation. Then in 1905, and completely out of the blue, when he was only 26 years old, Einstein wrote 3 groundbreaking scientific papers, each of which became the basis of a new branch of physics. The third pairing is thinking or feeling, and this preference deals with how we make decisions, either by using objective logical principles, T, or by considering the impact of each alternative on the people involved, F. Thinking types like to work in settings that rely on logic, consistency, and fairness when decisions are made. Once they have objectively analyzed the situation, they're ready to proceed. And while they're interested in building relationships with coworkers, they're much more interested in the task at hand. People with a preference for feeling, however, typically place high value on the needs of the people involved. They consider their business relationships as important as the work they do. Ted Turner, the millionaire founder of CNN and other business ventures, is a thinking type. Logical, analytical, and always business first, like many successful businessmen, Turner has never much cared about how other people view his decisions. It's not that he doesn't care about others, but they are merely one factor in the decision-making process for him. An example of a feeling type, however, is Oprah Winfrey. An excellent and immensely successful businesswoman in her own right, Winfrey is much more concerned about others and what they think. She leads with her heart, always looking for the positive. And despite her wealth and fame, is nevertheless able to sympathize and identify with others, especially those who struggle with certain life issues. Well, the final pairing is judging or perceiving. This preference deals with how we choose to approach our lives, whether we plan our moves, J, or simply go with the flow, P. Those with a preference for judging generally like to plan their work and then work their plan. Providing organization and structure to any endeavor comes naturally for judgers. They tend to believe that work should come first, and only then can they be free to play. By comparison, those with a preference for perceiving often find that planning can get in the way of living life to the fullest. Perceivers tend to be open and spontaneous as they adapt to whatever comes their way, and environments that call for flexibility they find to be ideal. Well, Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, is an example of a judging type. Not content merely to be successful in the field of computers and operating systems, you get the feeling that Gates has had a master plan all along with which his company, Microsoft, has completely dominated that field, making Windows a household name and Gates himself one of the richest men on the planet. The late Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, on the other hand, was a perceiving type. She was very flexible and adaptable as she seemed to move effortlessly from First Lady to wife of a controversial shipping tycoon and then to her own career as a book editor. And along their way, there seemed to be very little difference between work and play in her life. So there's a brief overview, a lot of information. Again, you could always go online if you want to learn more. We're going to stop here today. This is the end of the week, our final daily devotion. But next week, Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, we're going to pick this up and kind of apply it to a couple of key biblical factors. I think you'll find that fascinating. Tomorrow, of course, hope you'll join us for worship either in person or online. And have a great weekend. Looking forward to be back together with you again next Tuesday. Until then, take care. Bye.